Good evening and welcome to the July 18th, 2022 meeting of the Coeur d'Alene Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. Melissa, will you get us started with roll call, please?
Commissioner Cranston?
Here.
Commissioner McDowell?
Here.
Commissioner Lean?
Here.
Commissioner Tate?
Here.
Commissioner Hill? Commissioner Bakes?
Here.
Commissioner Wood?
Thank you, Melissa. We were informed that one of our commission members is being delayed. Would you just maybe log the time that she's able to arrive when she comes in and joins us? Jim, would you mind leading us into the Pledge of Allegiance? If I can ask everybody to stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Do any of the commission members tonight have a conflict of interest with any of the agenda items?
None here. No.
There are none. Okay, that brings us to approval of our May 16th, 2022 meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review them?
I move for their approval.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner McDowell and seconded by Commissioner Tate to approve the May 16th, 2022 meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Minutes are approved unanimously. And Bill, that brings us to your staff report.
So just a few updates on what's going on in the world of Park and Rec. You might have noticed outside here these big stairs coming down the library. Adam Karitko, who's our building maintenance supervisor, is spearheading. They're giving that a little bit of a facelift. It was the nosing on the tread was starting to get a little loose, and it was starting to spald pretty bad. So they're cutting off all that stuff, putting a slurry seal on it, and then another coating to keep it a little more slip resistant. So that should be done within another week or so. On the park side of business, we are moving forward with the docks at Harbor Center. I've been meeting with the two approved vendors, and we've been working closely together. And so they are working with a firm out of Hayden Lake area to build docks equal or better to the ones that we have at the 3rd Street launch. So those gentlemen are moving forward on that. We've been having ongoing vandalism. Seems like a reoccurring theme at two parks, Landings Park and Bluegrass. We've purchased some standalone cameras. Those will probably be installed within the next couple of weeks. Hopefully we can, and it's getting very brazen. They're actually doing damage during the day, and by the time the neighbors call the officers, they've long left the scene, so maybe we can get some photos or something, I don't know. And this seems to be a common theme with, I wouldn't say transient, but people that move in and out. Sometimes it gets bad for a while and then maybe that family moves away. I don't know what the reasons for it are, but Landings and Bluegrass have been getting hit pretty hard. And our fix to that, because we don't have a lot of staff, is we don't have time to clean it up. We lock them, and when we have an opportunity, we'll go back and clean them up and then open them up, and within a week or so they get vandalized again. So if the people see those are locked, those are the reasons for it. We have porta potties outside, but we're doing what we can to minimize it. So cameras will be going up shortly.
Bill, has there been any kind of interaction with the neighborhood there and Coeur d'Alene Police to see if there could be some kind of a neighborhood watch?
And PDs, you know, they're strapped for people too. I think they're down a dozen officers, and so, you know, by the time they can get there, not usually, the kids are gone. So yeah, they've got great, I think, communication, but I just don't know. Maybe we can catch them and maybe we can make an example out of them. I mean, one of our guys caught him up on the roof of the gazebo pulling off the shingles and tried to chase him, and they ran, and they're faster than old guys like me, so they got away. So, yeah. Let's see. At Atlas, our vendor, finally got there. He was there starting Friday, had a soft opening. He's doing a Mexican torta sandwich thing he's going to have shrimp cocktails and some other maybe tacos, some ice cream. And so he had a really good weekend, even though he didn't advertise. So when I was there last, it was good to see that there were a lot more people finding it, because the access to that park is in a funky spot coming off Suzanne by the bus terminal over there. So once the entrance is off, Celtics get punched through, it'll become more active. But most people right now are currently parking at Riverstone and walk into the dog park all the time. So that one's the busy one. But the parking lot had probably 25 or 30 cars in it when I checked on him on Friday. So Paul Mason is
Excuse
the
me,
vendor
Bill.
there.
Jim, did you have a question?
Yeah, Bill, what days is he open, hours, do you know,
I
operations?
don't off the top of my head, but he was open today and he was open this weekend. So he's got to have one day a week that he's probably closed. But I don't recall his hours of operation.
Okay.
And then one other thing we're doing too, just so you understand, we're being short on people. We've begun modifying a little bit of our operations. For example, the 16 acres we maintain at the interchange of I-90 and Northwest Boulevard, we would normally mow that once a month. And right now, we're mowing 200 acres in 4.5 days with 2 guys. They're busting their backsides to get this thing done. But what we decided to do out there, we're only mowing the flats. This is a sheep's fescue that can get long, and it looks pretty cool. So on the hillsides, it'll be a little wispy, but on the flatlands, you'll see that's the area we're mowing. We're doing the same thing with Monty McCulley on the trails. Normally, on the trail, when we do rough mowing, we go from the trail edge all the way to the property's edge. And right now, he's only making a couple of passes because he's working alone, and he's doing it all himself, and he's already behind schedule, even though we've been trying to keep up with it. With the amount of rain and sun we've had, the weeds are loving it. So we're trying to get a little more efficient too. We bought a hooded sprayer, so when we're doing broadleafs, it's a lot more efficient, and we use less product, and we have better control. So those sorts of things. And on off note, Jeff Erickson, our superintendent, is very creative, and we've got a great staff of people that are talented in many ways, whether they're mechanics or they're welders or they're carpenters. And we wanted to clean up the beach, and the beach has got obviously a lot of sand in it, and so it was pretty messy. So we had a group go out there and windrow a bunch of sticks for us, but to pick it up was difficult. So we have a bucket, an older bucket, on one of our tractors. So we cut out sections of the bucket and put in expanded metal. And so we can go in there and sift it out and just take the debris and leave the sand behind. So it was really cool. Jeff was real excited about it. He sent me a video of it when they tried it out at the end of last week. So it's those sorts of things that normally we just be out there with rakes and shovels and hauling stuff away. But this way we can leave the sand behind. So it's nice. Our staff, their attitude is still remarkable given the workload that they're up against, and so they've all got a great attitude. And I think these sorts of things, that creative juice helps when you can create something like that and see it helps your job. And we build things, signs, the porta potty structures. The guys that do that really like it, and so it kind of keeps their juices flowing and their creativity and their attitude good. So I'm really pleased with the way they're behaving, given the fact that we're down 18 or 19 people now. And the people that we have currently, too, were leaving us to go back to school here within the next week. So. And Monty is chasing a grant with the organization you're going to be hearing from tonight. Penn Health had a grant for lighting or cameras, and we're going after some cameras for the skate park. And so he's been working with them closely, and we've got one more step in that process to get some actual quotes. We've got some estimates. It looks like everything is a go there. So we'll have a camera that'll be on the building itself, and then one more that we're going to move down. We have some conduit in place about halfway down inside the skate park. So we'll have two. The one on the building will give us a pretty good radius through the parking lot, and then the other one will give us a better shot of the skate park itself. So hopefully by the end of this season, we'll get that installed. So we've been working closely with Renata's folks in IT, and so they're giving us the ideas of what cameras are best, and so we're letting them do their thing and tell us what to do.
What kind of issues has your department been experiencing down in that area?
It's the same sort of vandalism. A few times we've had to close the, early on in the season, that restroom got hit a whole bunch. You'll hear this evening from Megan Lowry talking about the next thing. We had a couple of overdoses there, and so that's what she's here to talk about. But the vandalism there, we haven't had that vandalized in about 3 weeks, which I guess that's a good thing. But to even say 3 weeks, it'd be better to say none, but, you know. And let's see, on the recreation side of business, we're about halfway through our softball and baseball program for the summer. We had about 300 kids involved. We're also on the tail end of our adult softball summer program. And we're doing really well this year at the Jewett House. We've hosted many more weddings there than we had in the past. I think Adam Rouse, who I've given that to, I think we're up to 16 or 17 weddings there. And in fact, last Thursday, I think it was, the museum had their Great Gatsby event there, and it was very successful. They got a bunch of donations and some good money, so that's good for them, and I think they're going to continue to do that there, so it was a great venue for them. And in the future, we have our indoor swim lessons for recreation. Monday the 25th, we start registration for the next round at 8 a.m. at our office here at City Hall. We're also, our registration for fall soccer is coming up. It's registration will start August 1st through the 12th for, let's see, ages 5 to 8. So grades K to 5 and through 8th grade. So that's coming up for the first week in August. And flag football registration for 2nd and 3rd graders will take place August 1st through 24th. And games will begin sometime after Labor Day. And I think those are all my updates for what's going on in the world of parks and recreation.
Okay. Any other questions for Bill? Thank you, Bill. Do any of the commissioners have any comments or announcements? None. Okay, then we move on to public comments. Is there anybody here that would like to address the commission that is not already part of the agenda items? Okay. If you can come forward to the podium and just state your name and address for the record, and you have up to 3 minutes.
Diane Hughes, 1100 East Lakeshore Drive. I'm wondering what's involved in becoming a part of the Jewett House board.
Okay. Bill?
The Jewish House Board hasn't met for some time, and I'm not certain we're going to keep that board happening. I'm leaning towards having this commission have the oversight of that board.
Okay. Yeah. Wasn't that board supposed to have 2 people from the Potlatch Corporation as a part of it?
Potlatch hasn't been involved in almost 25 years.
But that was part of the,
Potlatch
agreement?
that doesn't really even have a board member on there for 25 or 30 years. And so we haven't done that in a long time. So what we're trying to do is the most efficient thing that we can do and honor what Potlatch did for us by keeping, it says in the agreement that we had to have oversight, and I'm not quite there yet. But I'm thinking this commission can do that. I don't even have a contact for Potlatch anymore to know. That was written so many years ago. It was 76, 72. And so the outline in that, I believe that this commission can oversee that very well.
I see.
Bill, you might explain kind of how we've got to this point and the difficulty we've had in trying to maintain a full Jewett House board, maybe, and
Right,
just kind of give it a little bit of the,
right.
back
understood.
information so we can understand why you're trying to go the direction you are.
So Commissioner Cranston is correct. We had limited amount of people that would actually show up when we had meetings. COVID really put the kibosh to those meetings for 2 years solid. I invited Mr. Banks here. He was on that board to be part of this commission. And so we had a vacancy here, so Mr. Banks is here for that, one of those reasons. He's got a great background in education, but he sat on that board for several years. We would have meetings, and most of the time the chair wouldn't show up. And there might be Mr. Banks was probably the most dedicated one that was always there when we did have the meetings, but for the most part, out of the 6 members, we might have 3. And so I saw an opportunity to streamline that. And then again, I always believed that this body could oversee that really well. So if there's, and most of the operations there don't require a vote or a motion. I mean, what we have now is we have the money we generate from the weddings goes back into a special account. The city subsidized their funding so that anything that we do at the Jewett House, my maintenance supervisor, Adam Karitko, handles all the maintenance. The parks handle all the outdoor maintenance. So
Beautiful.
all of the stuff that used to be done by the people that were staying there, we're taking over more of those things to do. Anyway, we, like Adam Rouse has got a bunch of weddings this year, as I said moments ago. Those funds go into that account to help keep that building up and running. And so we replaced the boiler, we've done all the painting, we've done all these things. So our oversight of that doesn't require us to talk to a board that says, oh, we're going to fix a hand railing. So there's not like it has to have a motion to spend some money. I have operating capital that I use to just maintain the home. And then, in fact, we have some money sitting in an account from when the last windstorm happened. We're having a hard time finding a contractor to rebuild the garage. So it's been down for, and we're going to put it into another location once we can find a contractor and get an architect to draw up the plans.
I see. And so is there a resident manager?
Yes.
And what is that person's?
She opens up the house during the day. We have, one of the things the Potlatch asked us to do was to make it a senior center, primarily a senior center, how it's worded.
Right.
So primarily, 365 days a year, it's open for senior activities. There's some pinochle, there's a writers league, there's some mahjong, there has been yoga in the past. And so anybody that wants to have an activity like that, then utilize the house, that's what it's for.
And are those activities $75 an hour?
Those smaller activities, yes. No. So those activities are free. But if you and I wanted to have a birthday party and go over
Right.
there, that would be this $75 fee.
That's
or a
good.
retirement party or something like that. So the house can hold 40 people.
I see.
And then we can, if it's bigger, we can spill outside and have the birthday party outside.
And if a person were interested in assisting the commission here, is that a possibility?
Yes, when openings come available, they get posted.
Okay. I'm not meaning to be on the commission, but to assist the commission in dealing with it.
Well, I can give you my address here at City Hall, my email address, and you and I can talk directly. If you have some ideas and how you might help out there, that'd be great.
All right. Thank you
That's
very
what I
much.
was going to suggest, Bill, if she can contact your office or staff and have a discussion on how she can participate.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Here you go, my phone and my email.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Okay. Our next item is an information item regarding community access Narcan box, a pilot project. Bill, would you kind of like to introduce this?
Sure, this is Megan
Item?
Lowry with Panhandle Health, and she approached me a few months ago about Narcan dispenser. So I reached out to fire chief and police chief and asked whether or not this is something that, you know, they have any sort of objection to and/or if it's okay. And they all, their first response was mine. That's a great idea, but it's going to get vandalized. And so Megan will speak to that some and how we are going to do this pilot project. And if it's successful here, we may place them at other locations. And with that, Megan, you can click on your
right.
PowerPoint and have at it.
Oops, that's not gonna work. Let me get set up here.
Pass that down, that's what it looks like.
Alrighty, so my name's Megan Lowry, and Mr. Greenwood introduced me. I'm a health education specialist at Panhandle Health District. I work on the substance use disorder team, and I am going to be chatting with you about the community access Narcan pilot project that we're going to be implementing in several of the parks. So first, I want to cover some of the background, give you some data points, go through some key terms so we're all on the same page, talk about what Narcan or Naloxone is, and cover what the Good Samaritan Law is as well. And then the second part of the presentation, I'm going to go through what the actual project is, go through why it's important, project background, locations, and features of the actual product that we're going to place in some of these parks. Okay, so what actually is community access Narcan? It sounds, I mean, in the title, it sounds pretty self-explanatory. It's a community access box that is available for public use. And you can see a picture here that is kind of what it looks like. It's just a box, and I have a visual here. It's not the same exact product, but if you guys want to look at this afterwards, feel free to do that. But it's placed in public places, parks, sometimes, parks, any public places basically. And it can be used in an emergency, or it can be taken and used later if it's needed. Okay. All right. And then something else too, I just want you guys to think about. What do you take with you to the beach? So I'll give you a couple seconds, think about it. So some of you may be thinking what's on the slide, maybe an umbrella, some sort of shade, sunglasses, a towel. Typically, most people think of sunscreen. So when we know someone is going to go to the beach, be out in the sun, we provide them and encourage them to use sunscreen to protect them from the UV rays and protect them from possibly getting sunburn or sun cancer or skin cancer, down the road. So this is the same, this applies to drug use in the same way. Unfortunately, we do know that people are going to be using opioids. And I'll show you some data to support that. But that's why we can provide them with community access Narcan to help mitigate the risk for these people and help basically mitigate the risk of a fatal overdose. All right, so some key terms. What actually is Naloxone or Narcan? So Narcan is actually the brand name, and it's the nasal spray. Naloxone is the generic name for this medication, but it's a life-saving medication that reverses an opioid overdose. And what is an opioid? An opioid is a class of drug that is used to decrease pain in individuals, and in addition to controlling pain, It can make them feel relaxed, happy, or high. These drugs are very addictive, unfortunately. They can be prescribed legally, but they can also be purchased illegally. Some common types of opioids that you may have heard of are prescription painkillers, hydrocodone, oxycodone, morphine, and some of the illicit drugs that maybe you've heard of in the news are fentanyl, carfentanil, and heroin. And then on the next slide here, I'm going to show you and talk about what an opioid overdose actually is. So this is a great graphic. An opioid overdose is when a toxic amount of opioid is ingested into the body and it overwhelms the receptors in the brain. So your body can essentially no longer tolerate the amount of substance that you've ingested. So again, like I said, this graphic is great at showing the receptors and how the opioid is fitting onto that receptor. And when there's too many of those molecules floating around in the brain, it overwhelms those receptors, and that's when an overdose occurs. This can lead to respiratory depression and ultimately death if it's not treated immediately. Some of the symptoms that people will experience when they're experiencing an overdose is unresponsiveness, possibly a blue-gray pallor to their skin, lips, slow breathing, or no breathing at all. And who does the opioid epidemic affect? You may be thinking that it doesn't affect you, or oh, this won't happen to me, but it does happen, and it does happen in our community as well. It affects all people, all ages, all demographics, including possibly a young child who maybe is getting into medication that they're not supposed to be getting into, a teen who is maybe taking drugs to try and impress an older friend, and even someone who's maybe more elderly who has forgotten that they've taken their medications and they take an extra dose because they don't remember that they took their medications for the day. And all of those examples that I just listed have actually happened in our community, and that is part of the local data that I'm going to show you in the next couple slides. So this is why it's important to increase access for everyone, because you never know when you might be in a situation like that. All right, and so another good thing to touch on here is that Kootenai County was actually declared a high-intensity drug trafficking area in June 2020, so about 2 years ago. So we're part of the Oregon-Idaho HIDA, and those graphics just show you the counties that are included. Obviously, Kootenai County is included, and then also Spokane, which borders Kootenai County. They're part of the Northwest HIDA. And then the central graphic is actually a very recent graphic, but it's showing the Idaho's primary drug routes. And so you can see that I-90 is highlighted in the red there, and it goes straight through Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And one thing I do like to mention, so with these, primary drug routes, it is illicit drugs, so things like fentanyl, carfentanil, they're extremely dangerous and deadly. Oftentimes people are purchasing these drugs and there's no regulation, right? So people have no idea what they're getting when they're purchasing these drugs. They could be getting fentanyl, they could be getting hydrocodone and fentanyl, they could be getting carfentanil. You really have no clue. And with things like fentanyl and carfentanil, fentanyl specifically is 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine, and carfentanil is 10,000 times more potent. So you get one little grain of carfentanil and you're probably going to be sent into an overdose. So yeah, it could be your first use, first time, and you can be experiencing an overdose. So some local data I have here for you. From 2019 to 2020, Kootenai County overdose deaths rose by 37%. And then the graph that I have on the right side of the screen here is showing opioid overdose rates per 10,000. and that has increased from 2020 from 15% to 16.2% in 2021. Obviously, we're still collecting data for 2022, but you can see that the line is well above 20% at this point, so it is drastically rising in the 5 northern counties. And this graphic is showing the Opioid Overdose Emergency Department presentations. So in 2020, there were a total of 97 presentations in the 5 northern counties of Idaho, and that's in the emergency departments. And then in 2021, there were 122. So the blue is 2020, the orange is 2021, and then 2022 is that gray. And you can even see, let's see, here in April, this is 2022. And you can already see there was 16 that month, which is a drastic increase from the previous 2 years. And this is data that's collected from the Essence database that we have access to at Panhandle Health. And then last data slide, I promise. I know it can get a little tedious, but this is a heat map of the overdoses in Kootenai County. And this data comes from the Overdose Data Mapping Application System. So all of the EMS organizations that report to ODMAP, we get to see that data. So as you can see, again, the Post Falls, Coeur d'Alene area is pretty bright, which means that there are multiple overdoses occurring in those areas. Oops. All right, so I just wanted to touch base on what the Good Samaritan Law is. It allows a person who's acting in good faith to seek medical assistance for any person that's experiencing a drug-related emergency, and they won't be prosecuted or charged for seeking out that help, as well as that applies to the person that actually requires the medical help. A lot of people don't realize this, and it maybe makes them a little bit hesitant to call 911 when they're witnessing an overdose or maybe even experiencing an overdose. Okay, so what is Narcan and how does it work? So I did mention briefly what it is. It's life-saving medication that reverses an overdose for about 30 to 90 minutes. The graphic on the left side of the screen, if you can see it, is essentially showing the Narcan, which is the green brain-looking bubble. It knocks the opioid off of the receptor, and then it has a stronger affinity to that receptor, so it keeps the opioid from continually bombarding those receptors. So it's a good graphic to kind of understand what's going on in the brain. Okay, and then Naloxone or Narcan, it is safe to use even if it's not an overdose. It has no contraindications, so if someone's having a medical emergency, maybe a heart attack or a stroke, things that present similarly to an overdose, nothing bad will happen to that person. The only really negative effect maybe that they'll get is a wet nose from having this medication administered. So if it is an overdose, then the immediate reaction and administration of this medication is going to be life-saving. So it really is imperative to administer this right away. And then the second graphic is how Narcan works, how you use it. So Mr. Greenwood passed the little plunger model. Yep. So you put your 2 fingers on the top, and then it is you can try it out if you want to, and then your thumb on the plunger, and you just place it in someone's nose and spray. So it's pretty easy to use. It was developed for layman use, for community use. Okay, so some common questions that I've been getting related to this project and related to Narcan specifically is, and we've kind of covered some of this, but does access to Naloxone discourage people from calling 911? And the answer is no. Despite the Good Samaritan Law being in place, like I said before, many people aren't aware of that. And data shows that it's actually a last resort for people to call 911 when they're witnessing or experiencing an overdose. According to the National Library of Medicine, only an estimated 10 to 56% of people actually call 911 when they're witnessing an overdose. And that's even if they have Narcan on hand or not. So having this available to people is not going to discourage people from calling 911 when, unfortunately, they're not likely to call in the first place. So 50 to 90% of people aren't going to call, unfortunately. And the reason for this is due to stigma, largely, and judgment, negative interactions with medical personnel, and possibly police officers. Second question here is, does access to naloxone encourage more drug use? And studies actually suggest that increasing the health awareness through these naloxone distribution programs reduces the use of opioids and increases the user's desire to seek addiction treatment. It's considered best practice to provide community access to naloxone and to put it into the hands of people who may need it, and that's, including community members in the park. Drug users go to the park too, so just like you and me. And the third question, is there a temperature regulation required for naloxone? What's the typical shelf life? So Narcan's viable from 41 degrees Fahrenheit to 104 degrees. So it can get pretty darn hot, and it lasts about 2 years. So if it does expire, basically the suggestion is to still use the product. You may have to use more than one dose. It may not be as effective, but it's better than having nothing at all. And so we'll talk more about the product, but it does protect the medication down to -5 degrees, which is the freezing point of Narcan. So it makes it perfect to place in the parks and outdoor areas. Okay, so now we can kind of get into the project a little bit. I'll give you some background on some of the research. So according to the CDC, as I've shown, naloxone can save lives, but only if it's accessible when an overdose is actually happening. Far too little naloxone is actually being dispensed in areas that need it, and usually that's rural areas, which is why we are implementing this community access naloxone pilot project. It's a critical part of our public health response to the opioid overdose epidemic as well. So the first location that we are going to be implementing this is at the skate park. The box, we are working with Mr. Greenwood for the placement location of the box. We were thinking possibly on the outside wall of the bathroom, or possibly a standalone. If there is any vandalism that may occur, then it's on its own post. And then the reason that this location was chosen as the first pilot location was just based solely on, Mr. Greenwood mentioned earlier, the overdoses that have happened. So that is what created this response from Panhandle Health District. And then the heat map and all the data that I showed you in the previous slides indicates that this is something that's needed in our community with the increase in overdoses. So going through the goals and importance of this project, the goal is ultimately to provide a life-saving medication to those who may not have access anywhere else. It decreases the stigma that surrounds Narcan and opioid use disorder by bringing education and providing awareness to what's going on in the community. It makes resources known and accessible. And it allows us to continue to collaborate with our community partners. So the Parks and Recreation Department and the City of Coeur d'Alene has been a great partner in this, helping us get this project on its feet, and working with Chief White, Chief Grief, to kind of get this project going, making sure everyone's aware, working with EMS Medical Services. And then also Kootenai Recovery Community Center and North Idaho AIDS Coalition as well. They are going to be helping us with the manpower part of this project. So they're going to be helping us with the maintenance and the refilling and stocking of the boxes. And this is just a picture of what the cover of the box will actually look like. So we obviously want it to be very clear what it is. It's an overdose emergency kit. And the first thing you see is call 911. Provides a little bit of education on what the Good Samaritan Law is to encourage calling 911, how to recognize an overdose, how to actually use the product. And then the resource map QR code is on there as well. So if people need treatment resources, recovery resources, that is something that is being made available to them as well. We also have the number of either North Idaho AIDS Coalition or Kootenai Community Recovery Center on there as well, so that people can call and get more Narcan if they want, or have the box refilled. Okay, so this is the actual product. These are pictures from the website. I don't have it. It hasn't been received yet. We're waiting for that order to come through, but it's weatherproof, it's waterproof, it's insulated. As I mentioned earlier, it's going to protect the Narcan down to -5 degrees. So during the cold winter months, it will provide that protection for it, which makes it perfect for parks, outdoor locations. And then, as I showed you on the previous slide, there's visible education, resources, and instructions on there on how to use the product. And as Mr. Greenwood had mentioned in his staff report, there's been some concerns about possible vandalism of this. Obviously, we can't control what happens to it, but we do have a protocol in place. We're going to be in communication with Mr. Greenwood to get it replaced, make sure that it's filled, basically make sure that we're making the pilot project as successful as it can be. And if it's not successful, it's not, and we can maybe pull it and reevaluate that later, come back at a different time with our community for this project. So, and as he mentioned as well, we put him in contact with our grant coordinator for Partnership for Success, which is helping with the placement of those cameras in the skate park, as well as possible lighting if they choose to go down that route. So that hopefully will help deter any vandalism that might occur towards this box. And then another concern has also been raised about people just taking the product when they don't really need it. But looking at it from a public health lens, that's the purpose of the box. We want people to take the medication. If they take 6 boxes of it, that's what they need. So that's a win in our eyes. Some people may not see it that way, but and then as you can see, it holds about 9 boxes. So each box of Narcan, they're about this size. They hold 2 doses inside. So since it's a pilot project, we are going to start with just a couple boxes in there, 3, 4, because if we filled the whole thing, that's 18 doses. So we want to make sure that we start off with a smaller number to make sure we can keep up with the demand of the product if there is a demand. Some references. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being given the time to speak about this.
Well, thank you, Megan, for the presentation. I hope it's a successful program.
Thank you.
Does anybody have a question for Megan? Ginny?
I'm curious, when you speak of your Essence system, who all reports to that?
I believe that yeah, that would be good. I believe that it's hospitals.
Yeah, I'm Kelsey. I'm our program manager of our substance use disorder team. So our Essence data is our syndromic surveillance system, and so there are hospitals across Idaho that report to that system. And in our district, we have a varying number between 3 and 5 that report into that system at any given time.
Mike?
Yeah. Megan, you mentioned we're putting this box out there and who knows what's going to happen to it. Hopefully it survives well. How frequently are you going to check those boxes?
So the plan for myself, I am not going to be checking it regularly, but NIAC and KRCC are going to be checking that. Probably we'll start off once a week and see what the demand is like with that. And then again, we put the number on the box, so if someone notices that it's empty or it needs product, they can call the number and have it refilled.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner, my intention as well is that my staff's out there every day. So we're cleaning the restrooms, picking up litter. And so just in their daily rounds, what they'll do is they'll take a peek in that. And so we'll have that number that we can call for those folks to come fill those back up.
Okay.
Christie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, this is truly life-saving, so I do commend you all for starting this pilot project. Could you just go over once again for our audience that's listening at home, if a child were to get a hold of it, it will have no impact on them medically?
It will not, no. There are no, the medical term is contraindications, so there's no adverse effects to this product. Nothing will happen if you use it and you're not even experiencing a medical emergency. Just a wet nose or a burny nose.
No.
So,
Thank you.
you're welcome, Commissioner Wood. Yes.
Just out of curiosity as much as anything else, do you know about how long, is it Naloxone? Did I pronounce it correctly?
Naloxone.
How long it's been used in this type of situation? How long has it been out in the field? Is it relatively new? Has it been available in other parts of the country?
It's not new. It's been around for a while. I don't
Okay.
know the exact date
Okay.
it was manufactured, but I know it's been around for quite some time.
Is there, again, out of curiosity, any kind of a track record in regard to whether it's been effective in dealing with these? Is there any data in regard to its use and effectiveness and some idea of the number of folks that have been saved or helped by this?
I don't have that data off the top of my head,
Okay.
but it's prescribed to people that take opioids because it will work against an opioid
Right,
overdose.
Right.
But I'm sorry, I don't have that data.
Yeah, I just wondered if it's been used in this manner long enough that there's any data in regard to, its effectiveness in the program. The other thing is, do you have any idea of what the cost per unit is?
That I will defer to Kelsey as well. She might know how long it's been used as well and the effectiveness as well. So,
Yeah, some additional information for you. So at least my understanding is that fire and EMS have been carrying it for over a decade. So they have been equipped with it for a very long time. There are national studies that do show the decrease in fatal overdoses with increased access to Naloxone and Narcan. And again, it's due to its the ease of use and having additional access for people. So it's also available through pharmacies, and so people can receive it through pharmacies, although the cost would vary based on insurance. And then the second question, so at cost, we buy this directly from the manufacturer, and so 12 of these is about $900. Although the price has just decreased. And so we are seeing that as a positive to get more kits of it. And then the final kind of additional information is that when this originally, when Naloxone was being used, it started out in a dosage of about 0.2. It quickly went to 0.4. It then went to 2 milligrams. And then these are 2 4-milligram boxes. And we see people needing up to 16 milligrams to revive their overdoses due to the nature of how severe and how toxic fentanyl and carfentanil are. So we've decided on that 3-box due to that would, at a minimum, reverse a more extreme overdose.
Okay. Last question. Some of us on the board are educators. Have many middle schoolers figured out a way to misuse these that you figured out yet? If they haven't, I'm sure they will. Just being.
I'm sure that anyone could figure out how to misuse them, but as I was telling Commissioner Wood, there's no contraindication, so if they do use it, nothing's gonna happen.
Well, Coeur d'Alene middle schoolers are pretty creative. We'll let you figure it
I'm
out.
sure they are.
Jim?
I'm not sure who this question would be for, Bill or Megan. We're doing 3 locations?
I'm sorry.
Just the skate park?
Megan just put up possible locations. This is a pilot project at the skate park. And so if, as she said moments ago, if it doesn't work out, we'll reevaluate it. But if it's successful, we may move these to other locations.
So I'd be curious about why the skate park is being chosen.
I can satisfy your curiosity very quickly. There's been a couple overdoses there, and that was the reason for the selection.
Okay.
Yeah, there was an overdose in a minor there, actually, just a couple of weeks ago, that prompted this response.
So when Megan contacted me about this, I was aware of those, and I thought, gosh, this might be a great location. And so that's why we chose it. And I've spoken to admin about this, and again, both fire and police chief are in favor of it. As Kelsey said moments ago, they've been carrying it for some years now, and I've heard from our officers on patrol, they have used it effectively and saved people's lives.
Anything else for Megan?
Thank you.
Megan, thank you very much for your presentation. Again, I hope it's a great success. So we'll have Bill come back and kind of report on it
Perfect.
down the road at a later meeting.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Okay. Our final item tonight is a presentation regarding the Midway Project.
I forgot to push the button. So you all remembered back in 2019 fall, Doug Eastwood and John Mueller presented the Midway Project, which is the area where we have that long driveway that goes into Riverstone Park. It's called Tilford Lane. And adjacent to Tilford, there's a big weed patch between the trail and Tilford. And this was the area that John had seen this idea, because all of the railroads came through that area. And so he came up with this idea of the Midway to give, homage to the railroads that went through there. And so in this design, and I'll click through some of these. Let me back up a little bit. So we had been looking for some grants, and this is the area in question. And we had a developer, Rob Bloom, purchased a parcel that was down right in this area from Ignite. And so when he was talking about this, I asked him whether or not he would be interested in helping out with this project that you and City Council approved, the Midway Project. And I just asked Rob if he could do the green belt. None of the landscaping, none of the parking that was there, none of the roundhouse, which is this element here that again talks about railroads. And we were, Hillary Anderson and her team in planning helped us go through this with Rob. And Rob said, to look at his team, he said, we can do more than just the greenbelt, can't we, guys? And they said, well, it's up to you, boss. And so this is the roundhouse. And again, just the location of this. So the entrance is down this direction, and you drive in here, and there's some parking stalls right here. And then this is the park itself. So the entire entrance from BB all the way up to the entrance to the park will have some additional parking stalls along there, a total of 40. And this is a better detail of the roundhouse. The roundhouse is what they used to pull the trains into to do maintenance on them. They'd pull in, spin them around, put them into a corral, and then bring another one out, and that's the way they worked. here's kind of an overview of the parking stalls. And again, the roundhouse is adjacent to an entrance to some homes there, some residents. We met with that HOA. They had some concerns about the parking along the street. We satisfied their concerns by moving the roundhouse to that location. I spoke with Mueller about it. It was a little bit further to the west. He was okay with the design to help eliminate some of those car headlights that might go into that entrance of those homes there. So here again is the roundhouse with the parking. And the other thing that Mr. Bloom's going to do is that this trail right now goes this way, and the crossing is down here, so the people have to be in the road for an extremely long time. They shouldn't be doing that. So he was willing to clean this crossing up. It's going to be straight through. Additionally, in the project, he's going to put in what they call a rapid flashing beacon. It's one of those units that you walk up to and it just flashes, right? And so he's going to do that portion. He's going to do all this landscaping throughout, so all the green belt, and here's, again, the roundhouse as a point of reference. He's going to work with our urban forester to choose the tree selection and do all of the green belt. And again, here's just another highlight of the roundhouse with the plantings that Mueller had designed. And let's see, there's one more I wanted to show you that gives a better, I guess that was it there, that one. So the only thing that Bloom and Company isn't doing for us is that in John's vision, he has some historical placards that go along this to talk about the history of the railroad. And then there's an idea about the entrance along the trail. John Mueller had this idea, what they call the gantry, was what used to pick the trains up as maybe an archway or two along the trail. Other than that, Rob Bloom has offered to do all of this for nothing. And so when we first started talking about this, I was thinking he might drop 40 or 50K into the green belt. And again, at every time we talked with him, he said, we can do this. We can make it better. We can go further. We're doing paving already. Can't we do the parking stalls? And so he's just really a generous guy who is doing a wonderful thing for us to where we, in today's marketplace, I think this project is going to end up costing $700,000 by the time we're done.
It's incredible.
And we didn't have to, there's no matching grant, there's nothing. He's just doing this because he's just a nice guy. I just, I'm at a loss to, it's like every time talking to him, yeah, we can do that. We can do that. So anyway, just wanted an overview of it. He's starting there. Hopefully we'll get some of the infrastructure done this year. We get the trail realigned. The other people that we worked through on this is John Stone was helpful on this. He had the right-of-way on Tilford Lane, so he granted us the right-of-way to get across there. The Trail Foundation had a sliver of property adjacent to Tilford Lane. They had to sign to get that going. Obviously, Doug carried the ball that forward to his foundation, the Centennial Trail Foundation. And again, Hillary and her team were helpful, and just kudos to Rob and his folks that were willing to do this. I just want to bring you up to speed on some of the stuff. It took me the better part of a year to navigate through this, I think.
Good. It's going to be an exciting project.
Yeah.
I'm real excited about it. It's just a weed patch right now.
When does it start again, Bill?
Well, I think he'll start breaking ground out there pretty soon because he's been waiting on all the easements to come through. And so he needed one from Mr. Stone and he needed one from the Centennial Trail Foundation. So he's got that in place, and I haven't got a timeline yet, but I heard that, like I said, he wants to get the trail done this year and start moving some dirt around.
So I know you've got some partnerships and there's some joint ownership of some of the land that's involved in this project. So once the project is complete then.
Pardon me?
Once the project is complete, I'm assuming that the city Parks Department will take over maintenance
Yes,
and
absolutely.
care.
So all this, really what this is going to be, because it ties directly into some grass that's currently there in Riverstone. So this is really just a connection of Riverstone. And even when Doug was still here and I was working for him, we talked about this parking because there was always room for more parking. And Thursday concerts are getting bigger and bigger, and there's no place for folks to park. And so we need it there. We just finished our parking lot down at La Crosse, so at some point, there'll be other parking. I've yet to open that up yet because we're not developed down there, but we took advantage of the street work to have the parking lot done at the same time to save on mobilization costs. And so we're building a much better area for everyone.
Anything else for Bill?
Bill, just again, how many more parking places?
40.
Oh, man, that's great,
Yep.
because it's sure needed.
And four or six handicaps, I think.
Wow, that's great.
Well, thank you, Bill. Kind of keep us updated as the
Will do.
project gets underway and progresses. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
I'll try and remember to get out there and take pictures as it unfolds and bring
Yeah,
this back to you.
that'd be great. Yeah. Okay, we're winding it up here, folks. Last chance. Any comments or announcements? Okay. I'll just finish up then with a couple of meeting announcements then. Tuesday, August 2nd at 11:30 a.m. will be our next scheduled workshop. It'll be held here at City Hall in conference room number 6. And Monday, August 15th at 5:30 will be our next regular monthly meeting here in the library community room. So with that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Okay?
Second. Mike can
Okay.
have it.
Mike can have it, okay. The motion to adjourn by Commissioner Bakes and seconded by Commissioner McDowell. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good week.